Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tibbs, and guess what? I actually had a full night's sleep last night for the first time in like 5 days. So I am feeling a lot better than I did in my previous video. If you guys watched my BlizzCon Day 1 recap, you could probably tell I was a freaking zombie last night. But today I'm feeling a lot better. I'm a lot more rested. And as a result, I hope that this video will be a little bit better than my previous video. I do want to say, though, it does seem like you guys really like the continuous one-shot take format of the previous video. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video, too. My BlizzCon Day 2 recap right now is going to be one long continuous take. It's going to be a lot more podcasty. So if you guys are doing something in the background, if you guys need to clean your house, if you guys need to go outside, run some errands, whatever it is, you can feel free to put me on in the background. I'm not going to be using too many visuals during this presentation. But yeah, shout out to Az from Hill vs. Babyface, who says that stuff all the time. Thinking about you, Az. Love your stuff, love your new videos. But let's go ahead and get started. So, like that previous video, like my BlizzCon Day 1 recap, I am going to be talking to you guys about the stuff that you guys saw at BlizzCon, especially if you have the virtual ticket, like the Classic WoW panel, the World of Warcraft Q&A, and all the stuff that happened on the stage, as well as the stuff that you guys may not be privy to. Some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes, some of the stuff like the North American exclusive interview, which took place with myself and the Classic Cast, as well as some of the Classic WoW lead devs. A lot of the things that didn't happen on the stage and were not necessarily available to the public at BlizzCon, but hopefully will be soon. So, without further ado, I just want to highlight the segments that we're going to cover today, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, as I said right now, there was a North American exclusive interview with the Classic Cast team, as well as other North American media outlets with the Classic World of Warcraft development team. I'm going to be talking about that first, because that happened first in the morning. After that, the Classic WoW panel took place, almost immediately afterwards. That is what I'll be covering next. After that, we'll talk about the World of Warcraft Q&A, which did field, I think, a couple of Classic WoW questions. We'll talk about those. And finally, I will talk about my final thoughts on BlizzCon as an attendee, as somebody who was there for the first time, what I thought about it, how excited I was, how disappointed I was, whatever it may be. I'm going to be wrapping up my thoughts there as well. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the North American exclusive interview. So, what was that? What is that? What interview? What are you talking about, Tips? So, a couple of weeks back, I believe it was, we were approved for a group interview as the Classic Cast to interview some of the Classic World of Warcraft developers. And in attendance of this interview was the Classic World of Warcraft lead software engineer, Brian Birmingham, which you guys met on stage at the Classic WoW panel, as well as John Haidt, who is the new executive producer for World of Warcraft. He was the guy that took over the job from Jalen Brack, who was obviously promoted to president now. He's also the guy that announced the release date for Classic, and he was that guy, basically. So you guys have already seen his face. You know who he is. We sat down with both of them, as well as a couple of other North American media outlets. I'm not exactly sure who's there. I think Wowhead was there representing, because I saw the recap on it, as well as a couple of other individuals. But your boys from the Classic Cast really tried to push out the best questions possible, which leads us to the first question that I asked. The first question that I asked was a question about sharding. Now, you guys know how I feel about sharding. You watched my previous video. I am adamantly against sharding. Possibly to an extreme. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I do have, I guess, a big personal angst against sharding. So that was the first question that I asked, and I directed that to Brian Birmingham, who answered the question, in my opinion, very, very well. And to summarize his response, basically what he said more or less was sharding is hopefully a last-ditch effort at server stability. It's not something that they are guaranteeing. It's not something that they're confirming, but it is one of their better tools that they have in their arsenal to combat server instability issues. However, they are exploring other options, which was very, very important. It was very relaxing to hear that from Brian, because it's not yet guaranteed. And I hope in the near future, we do hear what some of those options are. And even more so, hopefully those are the options that will be pursued aside from sharding, because I do believe that sharding is completely antithetical to the vanilla experience, as does Ian Hazakostas, who actually said that exact line at the WoW Q&A panel that happened later. We'll talk about that in a bit. But like I said in my video last night, guys, I did want to make sure that I asked the sharding question, pushing for it, getting clarification on it. So that was the first question that I asked personally. And beyond that, I am going to summarize some of the questions and answers that were asked during that interview section. By the way, guys, if you couldn't already tell, this is going to be a very long video. It's not going to be a short video. This could be upwards of an hour. I have no idea. But I do want to highlight everything that happened on day 2. And because day 2 was so meaty with information, we're going to go through a lot of stuff. So sorry about that in advance. But the next thing that I took away from that North American interview was that there were no Nostalrius team members working on Classic WoW. I think it was me who asked that question. I'm not sure. I can't remember. It might have been somebody else. Like, my memory's completely blurred. But there are no NOS team members working directly on Classic. Now, does that mean the Nostalrius presentation that was given to Blizzard wasn't used to guide the directional compass for Classic? No. Does it mean that nobody on the NOS team ever consulted Blizzard? No. It just means that currently on the Blizzard payroll right now, there are no Nostalrius team members working on Classic WoW. And a little disappointing, but it is what it is. I remember back last year at BlizzCon, Jalen Brack was asked a similar question, and he said there might have been some visa issues, some problems with that. So who knows what happened, but no NOS team members working on Classic. The next question, or the next explanation that was given after that, was about the Classic WoW demo. And Ian obviously talked about this too in the WoW Classic presentation, the panel. Obviously, the demo that we've received on the BlizzCon floor, and a lot of you guys at home are playing it right now, that demo is not representative of what Classic WoW will be. That demo was essentially a prototype that was put together to present to the people at BlizzCon, and it was designed to be playable at BlizzCon with time limits in mind and stuff like that. So obviously that demo is not what we're going to be seeing in Classic. And I think Ian specifically said too, you know, you're not going to be able to trigger an LFR command in the demo, or I'm sorry, in Classic, which you can do in the demo right now. You know, you're not going to have raid frames like you do right now in the Classic demo. Or at least not the Legion raid frames. So just what you see in the demo, guys, right now, take it with a giant spoonful of salt, because ultimately that's not what they're about. They're about recreating the most authentic vanilla WoW experience possible, a line that was said over and over, both in the panel as well as in the interview earlier in the day too. So I feel really good about that. But at the same time, something that was very interesting to me that was said was that the demo is actually relatively close in terms of progress to where they are now on the actual Classic WoW project. And what that means is this isn't something that was finished 6 months ago and they're throwing it up for us now, despite what, you know, guys like John Stats and stuff have said Blizzard usually does, which probably is what Blizzard usually does, but this might be a unique circumstance. The demo is very close to where they are now. And I think what that means is the next 7 to 10 months are going to be very, very difficult for the Classic WoW devs. They're going to have to push very hard to get the game to where it is, because obviously it's still very much a work in progress. I hope the best for them. I wish them the best. We're cheering them on here. But yeah, there's still a lot of work left to do. And hopefully they still meet that summer deadline, man. I hope so. But yeah, a lot of work left to be done. The next thing that was asked or was addressed was that the lighting that you guys are currently seeing on the demo and in the cracked sandbox version of Classic that was leaked a couple of days before BlizzCon, that lighting is going to be fixed. I know a lot of people had a lot of problems with the coloring of the lighting, how it was reflecting on zones, how certain zones just looked so foreign to what they did in vanilla. That is all being fixed, and Birmingham, the lead Classic WoW dev, actually talked about that and presented that in detail during the Classic WoW panel, so I'm not going to cover that too much right now. But yes, the lighting, the shadows, that stuff is going to be fixed and going to be brought as closely to vanilla as possible before Classic WoW launch. Beyond that, this was a question that I did ask, and that was about the server population caps. I think this is one of the most important questions for Classic in general. Server population caps affect the game in such a huge way, from how many guilds there will be on the server, how easy it is to find groups, how competitive, herbalism nodes are, how competitive mining nodes are, how competitive Devil's Soar is. All of that stuff is greatly impacted by the server population caps that Blizzard will decide to go with. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, no decision has been made yet. So Blizzard is still working on finding out what the population concurrent cap should be. However, John Haidt, who is the executive producer of World of Warcraft, did say something very interesting. He said that they do have the capacity, they do have the means to dial it up from where it was back in vanilla. Very interesting. Obviously, he's not committing to saying it's going to be bigger than they were back in vanilla, but I thought it was very interesting how he brought that up specifically. I'm guessing what that means is they are very familiar with Nostalrius and their approach, how big that server was. And by the way, they had a lot of very nice things to say about the Nostalrius team. Nano, Viper, Damon, Terrell, if any of you guys are watching, the Classic WoW lead dev and the executive producers, all those guys, they loved the work that you did, and they loved your passion so much, and you are actually brought up in name. So shout out to you guys. Just wanted you guys to know that. I thought it was awesome that they mentioned you guys too. What else did they mention? They mentioned no changes to data, no changes to patch 1.12.1 data, including class balancing. So if you were hoping for paladins, rep paladins to be a little bit stronger or something like that, if you were hoping for enhanced shaman to be a little bit better, none of that is changing. They're not touching the patch 1.12.1 data. And the actual line that they used was that it's not their data to touch. It's not their data to change. And they brought up the word change a lot and how they won't be changing things. Essentially, one of the biggest things that I took away from BlizzCon in general, as well as this interview, there are no changes. Like, they are no changes. Like, it's very straightforward to me. They don't want to change anything if they don't have to. Obviously, things like, you know, Battle.net integration and stuff, that was always a given. But their philosophy is very much keep it authentic, keep it as it was. We're not screwing around with the data. And they're actually not retuning bosses either to make them stronger. I know that was something a lot of people were hoping they would do, because the bosses in Vanilla WoW, obviously with today's knowledge and today's experience and itemization and stuff like that, they might be a little weaker or much less formidable than they were back in 2004 to 2006. However, Blizzard will not be retuning the bosses because, again, according to them, the data is not theirs to change. It was the original World of Warcraft developers' data. It was the community's data. World of Warcraft to them is very much a museum piece, and they're going to treat it that way. Beyond that, a very, very nice line that was said by Brian Birmingham. I mean, when he said this, I tweeted this, by the way. By the way, if you guys totally missed everything that happened at BlizzCon, dude, I tweeted like a maniac. If you missed all of the updates and stuff like that, you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/tipsoutbaby. I talked about everything. I tweeted everything as it was happening. In case you guys missed something, or in case I missed something here now, you can check it out on Twitter. All of the tweets are still there. But yeah, one really cool thing that Brian said, I really like Brian, by the way. One thing that he said was, when I think somebody brought up the topic of changes, and he was like, look, this is paraphrasing, assume you want to do it authentically, talking about Classic WoW, and guide us if you see something wrong. What he was trying to tell us is, look, guys, we want to do it right. If you see something is wrong, it's not authentic, tell us, let us know. At the end of the day, guys, the Classic WoW dev team is maybe like 15 to 20 people. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Classic World of Warcraft fans out there. We have a lot more numbers than they do, and we're the ones that'll be able to go into the game, test things, and point out the things that are wrong. Never be shy, guys. Never be shy. If you see something wrong, say something. On the forums, let somebody know. Get it out there, because they are listening, and they're practically, you know, they want us. They want us to help them. They're not shying away from feedback at all. I love that Brian said what he said, and they are. I believe they are genuine when they say that. Like it was like almost like desperation. Like tell us. You see something? Tell us. Please tell us. Because at the end of the day, these guys are just as passionate. I swear to God, these guys are freaking vanilla nerds, man. Legit vanilla geeks and vanilla nerds. They want it to be as close as possible too. So the onus is going to be on us to make sure that they know what needs to be reverted back to vanilla and what hasn't been ported correctly from the 7.3.5 client. After that, they talked about the connection between retail and classic. I can't remember what the question was. I think somebody was asking about, you know, if you could move a character from classic to retail. Basically, John Haidt, the executive producer, came out and said, no, these are two separate games. You're not going to have any connection between the two games. Meaning that transmog, which he brought up specifically, Transmog, you're not going to be able to get a corrupted Ashbringer in Classic WoW and transmog it to your character in retail. There's not going to be any two-way connection. You're not going to be able to use a WoW token in modern World of Warcraft to buy time for Classic World of Warcraft. All of that stuff is just completely disconnected. So all of those fears about the games connecting, subside them, put them aside. They're not going to happen. They let us know very bluntly about that one in particular. Moving on to the cash shop. This was a question that I asked. I asked, will there be a cash shop in Classic WoW? And will you provide services like faction transfers, name changes, and server transfers? This is what they told us. They said, look, we have no plans for a cash shop as of now. However, things were provided as services during vanilla, like character transfers specifically. What we're going to do, and this is them talking, what we're going to do is we're going to look at each of these individual things on a case-by-case basis. If they were in vanilla, if we think they will benefit Classic, well, we may put them in. So I'm guessing, character transfers might come into the game at some point. Do I think things like mounts, all that stuff? No. No, they specifically said if it happened in vanilla, we're going to review it on a case-by-case basis, and we might put it in the game. They didn't say we will. They said we might, depending on what the community wants. So that's totally fine with me. I mean, if something was in vanilla, it was in vanilla. You can't really argue that. Very, very nice to hear that there will be no WoW token in Classic WoW. There's going to be no mounts, none of that BS. Don't worry about that stuff. That's not happening. But things like character transfers to different servers, it's a possibility. It's not planned as of now, but it could be a possibility later on. And finally, the last major thing that I took away from this exclusive interview was that they are looking into right-click adding players on BNet from the opposing faction. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, currently in Retail WoW, you can right-click someone on the opposing faction, you can right-click their name frame, and you can add them as a BNet friend and talk to them in-game. So essentially, it is sanctioning cross-faction communication for players on the same server. Obviously, that has a lot of destructive elements when it comes to world PvP and vanilla on PvP servers. It can be used for cross-faction collusion. It can be used to abuse a lot of the game systems and to pull away that immersive element of Alliance versus Horde. So they specifically said they are looking into that. They don't want that to happen. And as it stands now, it seems like they're leading in the direction of preventing players from right-clicking people and adding them to Battle.net if they are on the opposite faction, which again, very, very good. This was another big concern for me. I love running into members of the opposite faction and not knowing if they're going to be friendly or not having any means to speak with them or find out who they are, wondering, oh my God, are they going to kill me or should I kill them? What's my health percentage? What's their health percentage? Should I attack? Should I be peaceful? I love that feeling of the unknown and that social dynamic of, wondering whether or not you should attack an opposing faction member. I feel like that disappears when you have the ability to speak with that faction member. So it's great that hopefully they're not adding that into the game, and I will continue to press against it because I do think it does take away a lot, especially on PvP servers. But aside from that, I mean, that's pretty much the entire North American exclusive interview. There were a couple of other things that were mentioned, and WoW had actually did a really good job of kind of recapping the entire interview, including the text portion. So I'll just go ahead and drop the WoWhead link to the full interview in the description below. We filmed it. We filmed the entire thing, but I know S-Fan is still in Southern California right now. I'm not sure if he's able to upload things onto his YouTube channel, especially a file that big because it was like a half an hour interview. But that should be up on his channel pretty soon too if you guys want to watch the actual interview instead of just read it, because 2018, dude, who reads in 2018? But yeah, moving on. Right after that interview, we did speak to the guys on the team, Brian and John, mostly John a little bit afterwards. Just got to know him a little bit. Very nice guy. Hardcore vanilla fan. Like, these guys, they're vanilla fans, dude. Like, and that was like one of the biggest eye-opening things for me. Just seeing like guys nerd out about like small nitty-gritty things about vanilla, like, when auction houses were linked and stuff like that, or when they were added to other capital cities. What patch did this? What patch did that? This wand got changed in this patch, stuff like that. Hearing developers talk about that stuff freaking turns me on, man. It gets me really excited because you remember that, or you don't remember, you're affirmed or it's confirmed to you that these guys are legit. They want the game to be as it was, and it felt really good to hear these guys talk about this stuff. But after that, we went to the Classic WoW panel, which you guys probably saw in the virtual ticket if you purchased one. The Classic WoW panel was essentially broken down into 3 or technically 4 segments. The first segment was Ian Hazakostas just introducing Classic WoW to everybody. Didn't really say much, so I'm not going to talk about that. The second segment was Omar Gonzalez, one of the leading software engineers on the Classic World of Warcraft team, talking about the technical challenges of restoring Classic WoW. The third section was Brian Birmingham, who we spoke to in the interview beforehand. Brian Birmingham, the lead engineer on the project. He was talking about why they decided to go with the 7.3.5 downport versus a 1.12.1 upport. He explained that whole process, and he gave us a bit of a progress report and some inside information on how they're putting this back together. And then finally, the last section of the panel was Ian Hazakostas again, talking about the design philosophies they have for Classic WoW. So I'm going to go through each of these sections one at a time, starting from Omar's section. I'm going to say what they said, what I took away from it, and my thoughts on that. So again, Omar Gonzalez, one of the lead developers on Classic World of Warcraft, one of the lead engineers, I should say. He actually he was on the original Vanilla WoW team back in 2003. So this guy is an OG. He's been with Blizzard for over 15 years. He worked on Vanilla WoW. He loves Vanilla WoW. We actually sat down with Omar for like an hour and a half the night before the panel, just talked to him, got to know him a little bit. Very smart guy, loves Vanilla. He's actually one of the guys that told us it's not our data to change. Feel really good about him. And basically, the big thing that I took away from his section was Blizzard has the full 1.12.1 data. They have it. It's not like private servers where they're missing proc values and armor values and health values. No. Blizzard has all of the values, all of the data. So what we will be getting in Classic WoW is accurate. It's real. It's what it was back in Vanilla, which is very, very important. Aside from that, he talked about a lot of other technical stuff. I'm not big on the technical stuff, guys. It's not that exciting to me. Although it's very humbling to see how much work they're putting into the project from the technical side. But let's be honest, we want to talk about we want to talk about visuals. We want to talk about how the game's looking like and stuff. And that's what Brian Birmingham brought to the table. I just want to say a couple of things about Brian real quick. The guy's a very enthusiastic, bubbly, charming guy. Like he's very charismatic. He loves Vanilla, you can tell. I'm not sure if you guys noticed the shirt he was wearing during his panel presentation, the green linen shirt. Freaking hilarious. Stay Safe has one apparently too. But the guy loves Vanilla. He's very passionate about the project, and he's been working at Blizzard since 2006 and was credited on TBC. So again, OG, been with Blizzard for a long time, loves Vanilla. And I think the coolest part about his segment was when he showed just how much attention to detail there is when it comes to Classic. Like, the big example that he showed us was as they were downporting the game from 7.3.5, they experienced a lot of challenges. A lot of the terrain, for example, was different when they ported it down to 1.12. Things like water in Loch Modan was not there. Things like the dam in Loch Modan was not there. There was just a lot of really big problems. Some of the mobs had different models. Some of the skins were different. Some of the textures were missing, stuff like that. And from what I understood from Brian, Blizzard is going to have to go back and manually change all of those problems, manually fix all of those problems. And I think that's the reason why Classic WoW is releasing in the summer, not releasing in 2018, because this stuff seems like a lot of work. The coolest example that Brian gave, in my opinion, was the lamppost in Moonbrook. There's a lamppost in Moonbrook. If you played Vanilla on a 1.12 client, you know that lamppost has a white light in it. But in the 7.3.5 client, it was coming up as a purple light. However, because of how much they want this game to be authentic, they literally went back and literally changed the light bulb. They changed the color to be white as it was back in Vanilla. And I think that what that shows is they are very, very committed to fixing even the smallest of details to bringing vanilla back as it was back in the day. They are sparing no expense. At least that's what I took away from that panel, from that presentation from Brian. I mean, for God's sake, fixing light bulb colors, like, come on, dude. You know, I didn't even expect. I would have been okay if it was, you know, a slightly different tint. I wouldn't have even paid attention to that. But that's how committed they are to bringing back Classic as it was. Very exciting to see that. Although there were some concerns. Okay, I don't want to fanboy here. There were some issues, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But Brian's segment of the presentation, I thought it was fantastic. Really interesting in terms of why they chose to go 7.3.5 instead of 1.12.1. But after hearing from him, I do have confidence that that was the right decision. And finally, section 3, or the last section of the Classic WoW panel, I think the one you guys are going to be most interested in, is the design philosophy segment that was hosted by Ian Hazzikostas. Oh boy, let's talk about it. So, the coolest part about this panel was that Ian straight up came out. The first bullet point on the freaking slide that he had was basically no changes. They want the game to be as authentic as possible. That is their primary guiding design philosophy. They are not looking to change anything that they don't have to change, and the vast majority of things they don't have to change. Like, you know, BNet, for example, was something I talked about earlier. But they're on the right track. They have the correct compass heading. Not our data to change. I said that before. I think Ian said it again in his presentation. And he specifically came out and said, those things you're seeing in the demo, like the LFR toggle and the calendar and all that stuff, there's not going to be any LFR. There's not going to be any transmog, no flying mounts, nothing. Nothing that you see that happened outside of patch 1.12.1 is going to be in vanilla in terms of game features. Guys, let the memes die. We're getting no changes. Hip, hip, freaking hooray. I thought that was really, really cool. Beyond that, he talked about a lot of other stuff, and I'm just going to pull the big ticket items that I thought were very interesting or that require additional discussion and additional dialogue. I'm going to start off with the debuff slot limit. Ian specifically addressed the debuff slot limit, and basically how we broke it down was there are a lot of things that are obviously not going to be in Classic, like LFR, like transmog, like achievements. But then there are some things that change during vanilla that are a little bit more difficult to choose, to resolve. One of those things is the debuff slot limit, which was raised in patch 1.7 from 8 to 16. The way Ian presented it was, look, at the end of the day, 1.7 to 1.12 was a really long time. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, I have to look at the timeline, but I think that from 1.7 to 1.12 was a longer period of time than from 1.1 to 1.7. And he was like, because the debuff limit was a design limitation back in the day, and that was confirmed to us by Mark Kern and John Stats, by the way, in the Classic Cast, because it was a design restriction, we think 16 debuffs is fine. It was in vanilla. That's what we're going to go with. How do I feel about 16 debuffs? It's not ideal, unfortunately. It's not ideal. It is still vanilla. It's not a change as far as I'm concerned. Anything that happened between 1.1 and 1.12.2 is not a change in my opinion. It would have been nice, though, to start off with 8 debuffs. 16 debuffs means Molten Core is going to be easier, means Blackwing Lair is going to be easier. All of the raids that came out before Zul'Gurub are going to be easier, which is kind of disappointing. But it is vanilla. You can't really argue against it. Will I make a video about it? I might talk about it, but it wasn't nearly as disappointing as some of the other stuff. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. The next thing that he brought up was loot trading. Now, this is a difficult one because this technically was not in vanilla. Dude, we've been talking about vanilla. We've been talking about Classic for a year now. We've been talking about changes, no changes, what could change, what might change. I have never seen a forum post or a Reddit post of anybody talking about loot trading. That totally went over everybody's radar, I think. But basically what loot trading is, for those that don't know, loot trading is the feature that I think was implemented in the end of Wrath of the Lich King, where if an item drops for 2 hours or something like that, you have the ability to trade that item to somebody else in your raid group. The reason why Blizzard is going to use loot trading in Classic WoW is because in their eyes, you could technically loot trade in vanilla. All you needed to do was raise a GM ticket. That was what was told to us by Ian. And as far as they're concerned, it's more or less a waste of customer support time to answer loot tickets about, swapping items. Which I think is a fair point. I mean, they're a company, they have expenses. I get why they're doing that. However, I don't think that loot trading in vanilla will be nearly as pervasive and prevalent as it's going to be in classic. Here's the biggest and most, I think relevant example I can give, because it's something I guarantee every single classic WoW player is going to have to endure now. And that is, if you are a pug or you're a random and you group up in a dungeon with maybe 2, 3, 4 other pre-made people, and you're in their dungeon group, guess what? All of those people are going to be able to roll on an item that might be just best for you and best for one other person in the group. Everyone in that pre-made is going to roll on that item just because they know even though they get it, they're going to be able to trade it to their friend. And that's a big, big problem. It's going to cause a lot of griefing for pugs, which is an issue. But I kind of like that too. I kind of like it, not because, griefing or anything like that. But what I like about it is it kind of incentivizes guild activity a little bit, I think. I think it makes people more inclined to get into pre-made groups. But, it's still not good. I'd still rather it not be in the game because there are a lot of other ways loot trading can be exploited. There's a lot of things you can do with selling loot, ninja looting, the way it works. Like, it could be a big problem. It really could be a big problem. I hope they look at this one more time. I might make a video specifically about this, although I know a couple of other people want to make videos on this subject. They're a lot more passionate about it than I am, so I'm going to leave that probably to them. But if I see that nobody's made a great video on that subject, I might go ahead and toss my hat into the mix and make a video about it. But loot trading, not very happy with it. Is it the end of the world? I don't think so. After thinking about it last night a little bit more, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it'd be ideal not to have it in the game. Moving on, before I talk about the schedule, the release schedule, I want to talk about a couple of other things that I really liked. Add-ons in Classic WoW. So we've been talking about this as the Classic Cast for a long time now. I know a lot of you guys have been talking about it on the forums, on Reddit, etc. What is Blizzard going to do about add-ons that go against the spirit of vanilla? For example, if the add-on API allows people to create a dungeon finder style tool, is Blizzard going to allow that? If the add-on API allows people to create tools that make raids just completely trivial, is Blizzard going to intervene in that regard? Basically, what I took away from Ian was they are paying attention. They don't want to restrict player creativity and player freedom to create add-ons, but at the same time, they are going to be looking at add-ons that might violate the core principles of vanilla, and I would presume they are going to act against those add-ons. As far as Blizzard is concerned, it's not good enough to just tell players, just don't download those add-ons. No, Blizzard understands that players will always take the path of least resistance, and if an add-on becomes popular, everyone will feel compelled to download that add-on regardless of whether or not they agree with it. And I think that's great that Blizzard understands that. Like, that's amazing that they get that. And I'm very happy that Blizzard will hopefully be looking at these add-ons very carefully and intervening when add-ons do violate the core principles and core philosophies of vanilla WoW. So props to Blizzard for that. I thought it was great. Did not think we would hear about that at BlizzCon, so definitely a plus for me. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about, an example that Ian actually brought up. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little thirsty here. No cuts, so I'm going to take a drink real quick. The second thing that I want to talk about here is the mail. Now, if you guys are playing the demo right now, you can tell that the current mail system that's being used on retail is what's available on the demo. However, Ian straight up said that we are going to restore mail functionality as it was in vanilla. Remember when it used to take an hour to trade mail between you and a friend? It's still going to take that hour. I think in retail today it's instant now, but in vanilla it's going to take an hour. I'm sorry, in classic it's going to take an hour. I think that's great. I think it's just another indication, another example of them really trying to restore the experience as much as possible. The light bulb, this mail issue, the torch that they explained in Goldshire. Remember when Birmingham was talking about how they changed that torch's lighting? It just shows how committed they are to producing the real thing. And that was one of the biggest takeaways I got from the classic panel. They're out to make vanilla. Classic is going to be as close to vanilla as possible. They're out to get that goal. However, I can't say that my overall impression, my overall takeaway from the panel was a positive one. I can't say that, guys. And it wasn't because of what was said. It was because of what wasn't said, unfortunately. We didn't really hear about progressive itemization, which is like one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, when it comes to Classic. Oh my God, I totally forgot to talk about the schedule. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. See, this is why you have cuts and edits and videos, guys. But we're going to backtrack real quick. I'm so sorry. Let's rewind. Okay. Let's talk about the release schedule, like the most freaking important thing. I'm so sorry about that, guys. The release schedule. So, yes, Blizzard has confirmed that there will be progressive content in Classic WoW. I think anybody with a brain knew that was coming. But their release cycle is very interesting. Instead of releasing on a instead of releasing content on a patch by patch basis, they have kind of clumped up certain content together and will be releasing them in stages instead. There are 4 stages that they plan on releasing. I believe the first stage is MC, Ani, Dire Maul, Azure Ghost, Lord Kazak, I think is what they said. Their second stage is BWL, the Honor and Battleground system, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as Zul'Gurub. Interesting. I think their third stage was Ahn'Qiraj and a couple of other things I can't really remember. And their last stage was Naxxramas, I believe. At least those are the biggest highlights of each stage. Now, obviously, this is not ideal. It's not perfect, in my opinion. Releasing Dire Maul at the start of World of Warcraft will trivialize a lot of those raids at the beginning. There's a lot of really good gear in Dire Maul that boosts DPS. And if you release Dire Maul at launch, Molten Core is going to be a lot easier than if you didn't release Dire Maul. And not so much because of the gear, but also because of the world buffs that you get from Dire Maul tribute runs. It's a big problem, guys. I mean, it's literally going to buff DPS by like 15%, 20%, if not more so, just by having Dire Maul at launch. Imagine killing Ragnaros with 25% more damage. That's a big problem. It's a little bit disappointing, absolutely. But at the same time, their argument is convincing. Number one, it is vanilla. It's not like they added a raid or removed a raid. It's still vanilla. Dire Maul was available while Molten Core was available to the vast majority of the world outside of the US. And the amount of players, the percentage of players that actually hit level 60 before Dire Maul came out and were raiding Molten Core is very, very low. And so with that in mind, I mean, the majority of the world back in vanilla did Dire Maul before they did Molten Core. It's so hard to counter that argument. Like, it really is hard to counter that argument because you're not arguing against a change. You're arguing against just design preferences. And unfortunately, that's going to be a very, very difficult sell. Will I make a video on this topic? Probably will. I probably will. And I'll combine it with the debuff limit too. But specifically with Dire Maul, I think it's a topic that needs to be talked about. The second stage that I have a problem with is stage 2, and not a huge, it's not as bad, but it's still, you know, a little questionable, and that's Zul'Gurub. Zul'Gurub being released with BWL is kind of problematic. If I remember my patch progression correctly, ZG was released a couple of months after BWL was released, and there are some pretty good pieces in ZG, so releasing it with BWL, not ideal, but yeah, I wish they pushed it back. In my ideal scenario, instead of 4 stages, they would have 6 stages. We'll talk about that. I'll make a video specifically talking about the stages that I would release, but I would have 6 stages instead. I would break up the Dire Maul and the world bosses in a separate stage from MC and Ani, and I would put ZG on its own too. TLDR, that's my video basically. But yeah, I'm not entirely happy with the 4 stages. However, I am happy with the fact that Ian mentioned this was still a work in progress. They are not set in stone in terms of their content release schedule, and they are listening to player feedback. So if you guys out there have a suggestion as to how to alter the stages of content release, post it to the forums. Very important, guys. Out of every game that Blizzard has, I would be willing to bet my top dollar that the Classic WoW team is reading feedback the most. And the reason why I say that, not to discredit any of the other, CMs and, guys that read the feedback on the other games, feedback for Classic WoW will literally define the game. And it's so important for them. So if you guys have an idea about content release schedule, post it to the forums. Hopefully they'll read it. If the community revolves or rallies around a certain specific style, we might get to see a change for Classic, which is great. But with that said, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, wait, BG's. Scuffed video, dude. Scuffed video. What can I say? BG's not at launch. I have a lot of friends in the high-end PvP community. I love them to death. I respect them a lot as great players. And pretty much all of them wanted BGs to be available at launch. Maybe it's because I'm a scrub. I actually like it the way it is in the panel, and the way that Blizzard's thinking about doing it. Delay the Battleground and Honor system to the next patch, the next big content release, because I want to see South Shore versus Terran Mill again. I want to see, I want the BGs to be hype when they come out. I mean, I really want that to. Can you imagine a couple months after a Classic launch, everybody's level 60, everybody's starting to gear up, and then boom, the honor system goes live, and all of those level 60s are super hyped. Everyone's getting ready to freaking crush in PvP, and you just have like a full couple of weeks to a month of people just PvPing 24/7. I think that's awesome. Although I do understand why the high-end community is against the Battlegrounds and Honor system being in at launch, or against them not being in at launch, and I'll paraphrase their position very quickly. For a lot of top-end players in Vanilla WoW, or in Classic WoW, I guess, these guys get to level 60 very fast. They start farming Molten Core very fast, and they get to the raid logging position very fast. So if there aren't BGs at launch, if there isn't an honor system at launch, a lot of these guys run out of content to do very, very quickly. And on top of that, the gear rewards that are rewarded from the honor system are not nearly as valuable if they are released later. That is the opinion of the majority of high-end PvPers that I've talked to in the vanilla scene. Again, I prefer it the way Blizzard is doing it, but I definitely understand those concerns too. We'll have to see how it all turns out. Things are subject to change. I'd love to hear what the community thinks about this stuff, but we'll see how it happens. We'll see how it goes moving forward. Okay, now, finally, my thoughts on the panel overall. As I said before, I think it was good. If I would rate the panel overall, I would give it between a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. And the reason why I would dock points wasn't because of what was said, but it's because of what wasn't said. I think it was great that they pretty much confirmed no changes. I think it was great to see the level of detail these guys are putting into the game. It's awesome. I love that stuff. But there's still so many questions that haven't been answered. And unfortunately, so many big questions, like progressive itemization. We have no idea what's going to happen with that. The Google document that I was updating during the event, man, like 75% of those questions are unanswered. And I wish that, I loved Omar's section. I loved Brian's section, but I wish they had a panel specifically for design philosophy. If Ian went on for like another hour, I think that would have been amazing. I wish they had a separate panel just for design philosophy and a panel just for the technical side of things. That would have answered a lot more questions, but it is what it is. I will give them a 7 out of 10 because a lot of really good stuff was said. But again, I wish some more questions were answered. However, we've got a long time till Classic comes out. We already know they've released dev water coolers before. Looking forward to hearing more feedback from the Blizzard team, both on the forums and in the form of those dev water coolers. But that was the Classic WoW panel, more or less. Moving on to the World of Warcraft Q&A that came up right after that panel. So again, just a quick water break, guys. I apologize. Man, crazy weekend. In the WoW Q&A panel, they did field, I'm not sure if just one, but I think they might have fielded a couple of Classic WoW questions. The main one that I was looking at was the sharding question. So as you guys already know, in the exclusive North American interview that we had as the Classic Cast with the devs, we asked about sharding. They gave us a great answer, in my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, when I left that meeting, I was like, okay, sharding not confirmed. They're looking at other options. It's pretty much, It's the worst case scenario, nuclear red button, but there's still hope for no sharding. After listening to Ian's answer on sharding, the answer that was given during the WoW Q&A, I do feel a little bit better too. I do feel better. I mean, Ian, he literally said, I think this is his exact quote, we completely understand that sharding is antithetical to vanilla. I mean, he basically said it. It's not vanilla. It's not good for vanilla. It's not part of vanilla. It's not what vanilla is about. They totally get it. And I think the way they're looking at it is, it's a big, big problem to have sharding in the game. But for those first couple of days, those first couple of weeks, if Classic WoW is as huge as a lot of us suspect it's going to be, I mean, they got to do something. They got to do something. Otherwise, the servers are going to be destroyed. And I want to call back to JLM Brack's announcement of Classic WoW last year at BlizzCon 2017. He did specifically say then that they want to recreate Vanilla WoW, but they don't want to recreate the Vanilla WoW launch experience. So it is something they have pointed out since day one. They do not want servers to be crashing every 5 minutes. They do not want rollbacks. They don't want 12-hour queue times. They want to do something that's going to prevent that madness at launch. That said, obviously I'm not a technical guy. I don't know what tools Blizzard has at their disposal to combat this server instability. I wish I did, but I don't know that. However, I do know one thing. I do know that recently, just a couple of months ago, a group of individuals, non-official Blizzard employees, were able to put something together that could handle tens of thousands of players on a single server without sharding. And the way they did it is through the use of dynamic spawns. Will Blizzard utilize dynamic spawns for Classic WoW? I don't know. I think it's a better alternative than sharding. It's the alternative that I recommend. But I think ultimately the biggest thing you can do to combat sharding is to decrease the server population caps. Guys, at the end of the day, Mark Kern told us this. He told us Alan Adham did not design World of Warcraft to have 10,000 players on it. Alan Adham wanted tight communities on servers. That is why they went with a 2.5K to 3K server population cap back in the day. 3,000 concurrent players makes a tight community. 15,000 concurrent players feels like a cross-realm zone. I know a lot of people like the big servers. I know a lot of people have very fond memories of Nost, myself included. And there is merit to the big servers too. It does produce a different experience. But going back to the principles of this project, going back to what we know about authenticity and what we've been told about Blizzard's desire to restore vanilla to what it was, it doesn't make sense to me to have mega servers like this. It wasn't vanilla. It really wasn't vanilla. It's a change. Big servers are a change, and it's just something we have to admit to ourselves. So, again, as somebody who's totally ignorant of the technical limitations, of the resource limitations at Blizzard, who has no idea about the inner works of the project, from somebody on the outside, it looks to me that dynamic spawns and lower server population caps would be a better alternative than sharding. However, again, I'm not Blizzard. I don't know the effect that would have on their server stability. I'm not sure it would fix their problems, but that is what I would recommend personally. And yes, I am going to make a full-fledged video on sharding. It's not going to come out today. It's not going to come out tomorrow, but I hope to have it by the end of this coming week. I just want to make sure that video is done very, very well because I want to make sure it gets to the right people at Blizzard too. But yeah, Ian's answer to the sharding question, I thought it was great that they understood just how much we don't want sharding in the game. I talked in my previous video about sharding. I said, look, if sharding is in Classic WoW, I won't play. Do I still stand by that? It's difficult. Am I flip-flopping already? Am I that bad? No, if sharding is in Classic WoW, or let me put it to you this way. If sharding is in Classic WoW beyond the first couple of days and beyond the first starting zones, I might just wait until it's gone to play. I'm still, I don't want to cave. I don't want to cave. I don't want to play if there's sharding, guys. I'm sorry. A lot of you guys are reaching out to me like, dude, you are insane. What are you doing? Like, you know, why? Just it's the first 24 hours, maybe. It's the first whatever. And I think the reason why I'm so against it is because I'm scared that it does stay long term. That's why I'm kind of taking a hardline position on it, guys. I'm scared it does stay long term. I hope it doesn't stay long term. I really hope it doesn't stay long term. We'll have to see what Blizzard means by sharding. I would like to see a clarification post on what sharding is and by their definition. I know Blizzard has told us that a lot of us mistake phasing with sharding. I would love to see Blizzard's definition of sharding, to what extent they plan on using it for Classic in specific, and most importantly, if they do decide to use it, why they're using it in lieu of the other options that are available, and kind of a comprehensive update as to why they decided to forego the other options in lieu of sharding. Ideally in my mind, and this is probably very selfish of me and I apologize for that, but it would be really cool if they released an entire dev water cooler update specifically about what they plan to do for those first couple of weeks at launch. Just like they did with their original water cooler update, how they explained why they went with the 7.3.5 version instead of the 1.12 version. I would like to see them explain in detail why they are going with sharding for the first couple of days, if that's what they choose to do, in lieu of things like dynamic spawns and lower server population caps. I feel like a fully fledged, thought out, written explanation of their decision will make me feel a lot better and will make the community feel a lot better. But again, sharding has not been confirmed, so maybe they don't go with it in the first place. This is just if they do decide to go with it. But yeah, I still feel better than I did yesterday about the sharding situation. We'll see what happens in the days to come. But aside from that, guys, that was pretty much the WoW Q&A, the panel, everything Classic related at BlizzCon. How did I feel about BlizzCon overall? And I'm getting pretty close to the hour mark here, so I do want to wrap this up. I know I've been just blabbering over and over again. But how did I feel about BlizzCon overall? Well, this was my first BlizzCon as an actual attendee. I had a media pass, which was awesome. But it's hard to do BlizzCon. It's hard to do BlizzCon as a content creator. It's hard to do BlizzCon as a content creator because the entire time, especially as a full-time content creator, like one of the things that kind of sucks when you start, when you start off on YouTube, when you start off on Twitch, you're really excited. This is your dream. Like this is my dream. Like I've fantasized about this for years, and now I'm finally doing it. And I had this like really awesome ideal printed in my mind of, what content creation was going to be like, what streaming was going to be like. It was just this perfect romanticized vision. And I also had a vision like that for BlizzCon. I always thought my first BlizzCon experience was going to be this just magical, incredible, just perfect experience. And the reality is, it was a lot of running around. It was a lot of, trying to talk to people. It was a lot of networking. It was a lot of, getting information. I mean, just tweeting updates, stressing out about, oh my God, did some new piece of news come out? I got to tweet it. I got to Discord it. Oh my God, something happened. Should I go run back, make a video? Should I go stream right now? What should I do next? It was incredibly, incredibly stressful. And fortunately, I feel like the stress was worth it because a lot of you guys sent me some amazing messages, man. I mean, some of you guys, I got messages saying, thank you, Tips, thank you for all the coverage that you did, for everything that you did at BlizzCon. That made it so much better. I mean, I got more joy from reading your comments about my BlizzCon coverage than I did at BlizzCon itself. That said, it was still awesome. Being up there was so surreal. Pretty much front and center for the Classic WoW panel. We were in the second row for that panel. It was surreal being there. And obviously meeting everybody, meeting SFan and Stay Safe for the first time. Me, SFan, and Stay Safe, guys, we, especially for those that kind of started following us recently, we all have a very, tumultuous history. We, a year ago, or not, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, when we started the Classic Cast, we were in a really bad spot, all of us. And, thanks to you guys and your support, we were able to get to where we are. And I can't speak on behalf of them, but on my end, when I met them, when I saw them, it wasn't just that I was seeing my friends. It was like I'm seeing these people that, with their help and together we kind of got through all the BS that we were all going through at the time we started Classic Cast. So It was really cool in that regards. Meeting guys like Asmongold, Towley. Towley came up to me, man. Actually, Towley, if you're watching this video by any chance, okay, if you're watching this video, you were the first person that actually came up to me at BlizzCon and recognized who I was. That was pretty cool. I talked to Towley on Thursday, the day before BlizzCon. We had a pretty good conversation about Classic and stuff like that. Who else? Who else did I meet? I met Mr. GM, who's really cool. I met Chinglish in real life for the first time, which was dope too. Chinglish is an awesome guy. I met a lot of people. I met a lot of you guys. A lot, guys. Oh my god, it's crazy. It's crazy how many people came up to us and were like, "Oh my god, Classicast. Oh my god, Tips. Oh my god, Stays S fan. Can we get pictures with you guys?" That blew my freaking mind, dude. I'm just like, dude, I'm grimy as hell. I'm tired as hell. I'm sweaty as hell. Y'all want a picture of me? It was so humbling. It was so humbling. It was incredible. The guy that was wearing the Nostalgia shirt, you know who you are, dude. Props to you, man. Props to you. That is a picture that I will keep forever. And everybody else, thank you guys so much for coming up to us, saying hi, supporting us, you know, at BlizzCon and before. It was incredible. And meeting the devs, meeting the faces behind the game that we love. I thought that was really, really cool. I talked about in my last video how I don't really want to do that too much more, and I stand by that. I don't, because I want to stay objective. But it's cool to kind of put faces on the phantoms that I thought were controlling our game. These guys are good guys, especially on the Classic WoW team. The guys that I met on the Classic team are vanilla nerds, man. They're vanilla nerds like you and me, and I wish them the best of luck. I can't wait to help them, and all of us help them hopefully get to the goal, which is the original authentic vanilla WoW experience. Be looking forward to that in the next couple of months before launch. I think it's going to be great. And yeah, I mean, touring Blizzard, man, we toured Blizzard Entertainment. It wasn't my first time there, but just being invited there is a completely different story. Like being invited as a content creator to tour was awesome. Met a lot of you guys in my community, DJ, Zavage. I met Crom, who's been a longtime friend and advisor to me. Fishy Lawn Gnome, he was repping a Journey Home shirt, dude. Fishy, I love you, man. And I'm so sorry to everybody who saw me that I couldn't spend more time with. And that's why I'm excited for next year's BlizzCon. That's what I want to talk to you guys about right now. This year's BlizzCon was stressful because to me it was work at the end of the day. It wasn't as magical as I hoped it would be because it was work, because I was busting my tail off, because I was getting coverage, because I was doing interviews. It was really hard to kind of let it all set in. But next year's BlizzCon, Classic WoW will be out. And obviously we'll be playing it like madmen. But I hope that next year I'm in a position where I don't have to take it so seriously, where I don't have to rush from interview to interview, where I don't have to stress out about how many tweets I'm letting out. I hope that next year, after Classic launches, BlizzCon 2019, I'm able to attend BlizzCon just as a fan, just as, you know, anybody else, no stress, just fun, friends, and World of Warcraft. So, hoping for that. But I think that's a good time to end this video. Guys, thank you so much for tolerating my hour-long rambling. It's been really bad, I know. I'm so sorry about that. I just wanted to give you guys a full recap on day 2, my thoughts and all that stuff, so I don't have to make 10 videos about this topic, so I don't have to make 10 BlizzCon videos. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. If you're still here, have a wonderful day, guys. More videos to come soon. See you on Twitch. And as always, tips out, baby.